Morning, everyone. As Luke mentioned, my name is Felicia, and as he mentioned, I am an English speaker. So hopefully it's not too early for English for everyone. So let me share my screen so that you can see. Okay, so everyone can see my screen, okay? Okay. So this morning, we're going to start with something that we call technological tools. And with this one, before we start, I wanted to see if you guys have heard some of these technological terms before, say things like dev art, things like artificial intelligence, interactive technology, or anamorphic illusions technology. I'm wondering, have any of you heard of these terms before? If you have heard of these terms before, can you just type a quick yes in the chat box? Okay, so some of you have heard of these terms before, but for the rest of you that haven't heard of these terms before or doesn't know what it means, today we'll be covering regarding these topics. Things like interactive technology. We'll be talking about what they are. We'll be looking at some videos and samples of cases that are using this technology in nowadays. Okay, so let's start. So first, being interactive technology. So what is interactive technology? So as you can see on the screen, technologies that are created and developed for real-time application with a focus on user input and environmental sensing. So as you can see here, there are three main aspects of interactive technology, which is first being the technology itself. Technology comes in many different types. It can be things that are completely digital, like web services or desktop application, mobile application, or it can also be something that have analog components, like things that have things like buttons or sliders or digital panels. So that is the technology aspect of it. The second aspect of it would be the real-time application. So there's this term called rendering, and I'm not sure if you guys have heard of this term before, but if you have, basically what it does is, specifically in field like motion graphics animation or 3D animation, they have this process called rendering, where what happened is that after you make changes to a certain file or after you make changes to a certain project, in order for you to see the final outcome and the final format of that changes, you have to go through a rendering process. And sometimes it takes a couple hours, sometimes it takes up to days, depending on how complex and depending on how big the file is and how long the duration of the animation is. But what's different with interactive technology is the real-time applications of it, which means there is no delay between user input and the final input itself. So the moment an input is made, the render time is basically as fast as the input is made. So once the input is made, then the guests or the users are able to see the effect or see the changes that is made immediately in real time. So that is the second aspect of interactive technology. And then the third and final part would be the user input part, which is going to be the interaction between, what makes the input, which in most cases will be human. I hope you agree. But on the other side would be the installation itself. And so without this user input, we can have, as wonderful, as amazing as a graphical output is going to be, but if there's no user input, then there isn't that interaction and there isn't going to be that that kind of crossover and effect happening on the interactive technology. So those are the three aspects of interactive technology and what it is. Right. So moving on, we're going to be talking about types of interactive technology. So with the different types of interactive technologies, you can see here, these are just some of them. There are even more out there, but today I'm just going to be talking about 4 that I think would be more applicable. So first being the gestural technologies. I think this is one of the most used technology in interactive technology. So this would be things that use sensors like, say, Microsoft Kinect, where you can literally detect an entire skeletal system. So say you move your whole body, the sensor will be able to detect it. And then we also have things like just regular traditional cameras that are paired with amazing programming nowadays, can even detect, your face. They can detect facial features. They can detect, even a whole human being. So that is the second one. And then things like lip motion sensors, where it can detect your entire hand movement. So, each specific fingers, whether you're pointing out 2-finger or 3-finger, lip motion sensor would be able to sense that. And then last being infrared lasers. So the second type is the spatial and environmental sensors. So this would be things that, active or passive sensors for elements such as temperature, movement, and sound levels. And then the third type is physical interface. So this is basically, things like your remote controls at home, or, some in-wall control panel, like the ones, say you go to like a 4 or 5-star hotels. You'll be able to see this in-wall control panels that control multiple things. Say, like the window curtain, the lights. That would be what in-wall control panels would be. And then, nowadays, even regular physical objects or surfaces, using sensors like, infrared laser that I mentioned earlier, can be turned into a physical interface. Say you have a wall, and then you use an infrared sensor in the wall, right? You can convert the whole entire physical wall and make it into a touchscreen display, basically. So that is physical interface. And then the last part being computer hardware. And that will be things like wearable computer, microcontrollers, and Raspberry Pi. So after going through and understanding what interactive technology is and the types of interactive technology, let's look at a couple of samples of work, some sample cases of interactive technology being used in in modern days nowadays. So this one is actually a case done by MGB team. And this one is, we created a digital playground. And with this digital playground, you have things like interactive projection. As you can see, the aquarium is an interactive projection. And we also have an interactive sand pit where using depth sensor, we're able to sense how deep the kids have dug the sand. And then we'll be able to create an interaction. So as if, they found a treasure while they're digging the sand. And also things like AR experience, they can be interacting with digital animals on screen. And we have tangram projection mapping, where we project colors and shapes directly onto the puzzles using shape recognition. And this one is also quite interesting. We put a floor sensor where people will be able, where the sensor will be able to determine, how fast the kids are running, how many steps have been taken. And then also we have live VR painting. And this next case is a case done by Nescafe, where they use a gesture sensor to be able to determine the position of the people. And this one also uses a gesture sensor where the output, which is this graphical effect, happens according to the gesture that is being made by the guest. And as you can see, the effect is real time. And this one, I'm sure you've seen before, would be a case that is done by TeamLab. And, as I'm sure you know, TeamLab is one of the most interactive, the most famous interactive designer, I would say, in the world. And again, they use things like color sensor, they use things like shape sensor to be able to determine and to be able to create the interaction between input and also the output. Okay, so that is interactive technology. So moving on to the next part, and that is going to be web AR. I'm sure that augmented reality itself, it's not going to be a foreign term for most of you. It has been around for quite a long time, but lately, what has been the biggest buzzword is web AR. So, AR is an interactive experience of real world environment with objects that reside in the real world that are enhanced by computer-generated perceptual information. So what this is basically is, say there is a single box, a single plain box in your room, right? What AR does to it is that once you scan that box using the AR technology, you'll be able to do things like, cover the whole box with a pattern, as if putting a wrapping onto the box. Or say, you can put an actual animation of a monkey jumping out of the box. So, it enhances that physical object that is actually in real life with digital elements and making the whole experience a much more interactive and interesting and even immersive experience. So what is web AR then, compared to AR? So basically, as the name suggests, web AR is a web-based augmented reality technology that allows users to access and enjoy this AR experience directly from their phones, which means, there's no additional downloads necessary, unlike the app-based counterpart, which is the app AR. And why then has web AR been the buzzword lately? Because again, surely you guys agree, getting our customers, getting our clients to download an app is no easy task. It's not easy. It's really hard for some reason. Not sure why. It's just a click of a button, but it's really hard. And there's actually been research that shows that whenever a download is necessary, whenever somebody has to go through a download, there's a 50% drop in engagement. That is a huge number. And and even after that 50% drop in engagement, only 25% of those 50% will actually use the app beyond the first interactions. You basically cut the whole interaction by 1/8 only. And that is, again, a really big number. So that is why web AR has been really useful for a lot of marketers, because that allows for this AR interaction, for this AR experience without the hindrance of going through a download. Another reason would be compatibility, across different operating system, across different devices. Even though with the latest advancement, this compatibility issue has not been that huge of a factor anymore. But I think that is still something that is, again, an issue, and that is a hindrance for for app-based AR. And with the broad accessibility of web AR, that means that web AR, by nature, reaches twice as many mobile devices as its app-based counterpart. So that is why web AR, again, as mentioned, has been the buzzword lately. For the past couple of years, that has been kind of the experience that a lot of brands are wanting to share out there to their clients and to their customers to enjoy, because it's something that is fun, something that is interactive, but something that is that doesn't have to go through the hassle of a download. So again, let's go through some cases of web AR to see how it's being used. So this first one is actually done by Audi, the brand. And once you scan the room with your mobile device, you're able to create this really realistic and immersive 3D track in your wherever you're staying, in your living room, and interact with it. And the second one is something as traditional as a magazine, right? Magazine ad, but then you can add this layer of interactive activity and make this whole experience much more immersive, much more informative, and you can see how much richer the user experience of this is, rather than just a regular magazine printout. And then this one is also really interesting. It's an AR virtual event. So instead of going to an event or just a Zoom event, you're able to actually attend a virtual event using augmented reality in the comfort of wherever you're living. And this sample is done by Coca-Cola, an AR that is using their own product itself. So you're able to scan the product, and then you're also able to see kind of the interaction, the story that is interacting and animated in real life, and then you'll be able to see it interact with the product. And this one is done by Amazon, where they use their own shipping boxes, and then they let people customize it, and then they generate a 3D rendering of this Halloween pumpkin directly in your phone, and then they're able to kind of see their artwork comes to life almost. And this one, I think, is one of the most interesting ones, where you can put an entire immersive portal wherever you are. And then, you're able to actually walk inside to this portal, and you're able to experience this, really immersive experience just using your web browser. And you're even able to interact with the things that are inside this portal. So, you can see how the usage and how this web AR can be used in very different ways, in very different formats, and how it can be experienced in many, many different ways. Okay, so moving on. Next, dev and AI artwork. So I think I would say this is probably one of the newest term that even I learned recently. Dev artwork, AI artwork. There has been an amazing advancements, I would say, this past couple of years, especially to AI artwork. And so before we go into it, and before any of you fall asleep, I'd want to play a little bit of a game. So with this game, right? All I need you to do is just, quickly open up the chat room, and then I'm going to be showing you a series of images where I want you to guess which of these images are done by AI. Because, that's how I want to show you how good of an advancement the AI artwork has had. So first image, here you go. Let's see. So this image on the left is A, and then on the right is B. All I want you to do is just quickly type in the chat box, which one do you think is done by an AI? Is it A or is it B? Let's see. Okay, I'm glad you guys are not asleep yet. I'm seeing answers. Okay, so we have a lot of A's, yes. Some B, mostly A. Okay, I'm gonna give you last 5 seconds to answer. Some B. Okay. Okay, well, the answer is B. So B is actually done by an AI. Isn't that amazing? When I first saw that image, even I couldn't tell. I was like, wow, mind blown. Like there isn't really a distinctive marker to tell like, oh, that one is definitely done by an AI. Okay, we have two more sets, okay? This next one is a digital illustration that is done, one again by AI and one by human. Let's see if you guys can guess which one is done by AI. Is it C or is it D? Both are digital illustration. Okay, we have a lot of D's, some C, a lot of D's. Okay, let's wait for about 5 more seconds. Okay, some C's appearing. Again, more D's. Okay, another shock. The answer is C. So, going back to the slide, both look breathtaking and amazing. And, both digital illustration, you wouldn't be able to tell, which one is done by an AI. And, just so you know, all these images that I'm showing you are actually autonomously done by AI, which means there's no human involvement in the creation of the artwork itself. Isn't that crazy? Exactly. How do you tell the difference? I don't even know. And then this last one is an actual human portrait, one done by an AI and one done by a human. Let's see which one is done by AI. Is it E or is it F? Which one is done by AI? Let's check. So we have F, we have E, we have some F. Oh, this one is quite balanced now, the answer. It's like E, F, F, E, F, F, E, F. Okay, another 5 seconds for the answer. Okay, some E, some F, quite balanced for this one. So the answer is actually E. E is done by an AI and F is done by a human. Again, knowing how much an AI can understand the facial feature of a person, and literally draw it out. That to me, Jordan, you guessed all wrong. Yeah, but again, even I wasn't able to really see how, how it is. Like Gary was asking just now, like, how do you tell? Like, how do you tell the difference? Like, you cannot even tell. That's how good of an advancement I believe, AI technology has made. All these deep neural networks are being trained to be able to create images that are so beautiful and so realistic. Okay, so after that test, after that little game, let's dive into what is deaf art, what is AI art. Okay, so deaf art is art that is made with programming by developers that push the possibilities of creativity and technology. I don't know if you know this, but there has been a, I don't know, decade, if not maybe hundreds of years long decade between the world of programmers and designers. So for the longest time, there's always this term where you say, you do not ask a programmer to design and you do not ask a designer to code because of how different the way a programmer and how a designer thinks. There's always been kind of this joke that, programmers and designer can never get along. They cannot even talk to each other because they just don't understand each other. So that is what I find funny with deaf art, because what deaf art basically does, right, is basically bridging the two worlds, the world of programming and creativity, the world of designing itself. This would be people that have to think both like a programmer and like a designer, both like an artist and both like a technical coder. So instead of the regular things like, pen and paper or canvas and oil paint, these people use technology as their canvas, and then they use code as the raw materials to create this wonderful and innovative, engaging digital art installation. So that is what deaf art is. Instead of creating and literally drawing a piece of art, what you do is you program this art to appear instead of just drawing it out. So, what about AI art? Just like the one I showed you earlier. So AI artwork is created with this as with the assistance of AI. Again, as mentioned, it can be work that is done either individually, autonomously by AI system, or a collaboration between human and AI system. All the pictures I showed you earlier is done autonomously by AI system. No human collaboration was involved. So again, like I mentioned, that shows just how amazing the advancements has been made in AI art. And so, after understanding what deaf art and what AI art is, let's look again at more sample cases of these specific technologies being used. Okay, so this one. Okay, this first one is called Quantum Memories. It's done by Rafik Anadol, and this one actually holds around more than 200 million images that are publicly available online of things like landscapes, clouds, nature, the ocean, and then using that, and then with the collaboration of the artist itself, generates that artwork. And this one is another one done by our team at MGV, where we created this dev art. And you can see that at the moment, the wall or the floor is being touched or being stepped on, the user input itself, a real-time effect comes out, and you'll be able to see this wonderful effect, graphical effects come on screen. And again, no render process. And then this next one is Digital Art Fair. We're really glad to be a part of Digital Art Fair last year. But this specific artwork, again, is done by Rafik Anadol, and this is called Machine Hallucination. I mean, just how mesmerizing is this this display? And this last one is done by a group of developers commissioned by Google, and this is actually called Playful Geometry. And what happened is that they've created this system where you're able to immediately create a graphical animation with just this simple app, and again, without any render time needed. So that is deaf artwork and AI artwork. Okay, so finally, we're moving on to anamorphic illusion technology. This is, to me, this is a little too long of a word and too early in the morning to say this word. But, what is anamorphic illusions technology? So anamorphic illusions technology comes from the concept of anamorphosis. As you can see, it's basically a distorted graphical projection that requires the viewer to occupy a specific vantage point to view a recognizable image. So as you can see here, the image on the left, it's the wave that is one of the most viral, and actually I feel like it's the biggest digital anamorphic illusion that is available out there for quite a number of years. And what the anamorphic illusion technology means is basically the combination of using advanced display technology and this anamorphosis concept, and also amazing 3D rendering effect. So the combination of those three creates this anamorphic illusions technology. And what happens is that you get this really realistic and this very vivid feel. And you would honestly, when you see this at a specific vantage point, it really gives the viewer a visual shock, to be honest. So to understand a little bit about anamorphosis, right, I have this image here you can see here. I mean, if you see here, this is just like a scattered, sporadic balls hanging on a thread, doesn't really show anything, looks almost abstract. But what you don't know actually with using anamorphosis or anamorphic illusion, what happened is that the artist actually chose this specific location and chose this specific level to put the balls, because they are going to form this wonderful image, which is actually a halftone graphic of the shape of an eye. So, like I mentioned, at a specific vantage point, this concept creates a wonderful artwork that, you wouldn't be able to see from other specific vantage point. So to see this anamorphic illusions technology sample, another one by our team at MGV, this one is a recent project that we did for a shopping mall in Hong Kong, where we created this perspective bending projection, where you see, almost feels like the character is actually standing on the shelf, is actually standing on the floor, but it's actually just a flat image that is projected on the floor. But at a specific angle, when you see it, it looks very realistic. Another one done by our team also, this is just a one single LED wall that is actually what we wanted to do is we want to create this animation to make it feel like there's a sense of 3D box, 3D depth into this animation, to make you believe that it's not just a flat wall, but it's, it's as if there is this hidden room inside it. And this one is the image that I was sharing just now, which is the wave that is in SM Town, Korea. It's one of the biggest public media art at that moment, where there's this almost transparent like box with filth constantly crashing. I mean, just how breathtaking is that view? You can see, just done by A2 wall. And this one is another one that I find to be very interesting and very smartly done. As you can see, that the curved display here, right, is actually the real edge. But then, the 3D designer created this fake edge using a shape inside it. And it really feels like, the cat is floating out of the LED wall. And that is how the anamorphosis is used in this specific 3D rendering, and it makes the whole thing much more interesting. So, whether we like it or not, the pandemic changed the way that we live. The pandemic changed the way that people live, the way that people work, the way that businesses strategize. And I believe that by incorporating and by including technology, especially the ones that are really suitable for your business and brands, can really help you strategize better to capture the post-pandemic market rebound. Thank you. If you have any questions, feel free to just jot it in the Q&A.